Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the DRF Saturday race of the day. It is the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby going 1 mile and 3/16 for the 3-year-olds on Saturday at Fairgrounds. And speaking of the Kentucky Derby prep races, you do want to be aware we've got this Road to the Derby package. This is the weekend you want to take advantage of this. Now, up until the Kentucky Derby, you get PPs for 10 events. If you're going to be playing these Derby preps right on through the Oaks and the Derby cards, just buy them all in a bundle and save 37%. You get clocker reports, betting strategies, and more. Find out more information at shop.drf.com. And also, with this being the Saturday race of the day, do note you can get free PPs for this race in particular. And you do want to check out this race on Daily Racing Form. Classic, Formulator, Timeform USPPs, all covered in the race of the day page. And you could take a deeper dive along with Mike and me. Mike, 10 runners signed on for this Louisiana Derby, looking for those 100 qualifying points that will guarantee a spot in the Kentucky Derby starting gate. And this has become a pretty popular route for connections to get to the Kentucky Derby, given that 9.5 furlong distance is a real test of the stamina for the 3-year-olds. But this year's Louisiana Derby has drawn a pretty wide open field, a lot of horses that still have something to prove coming into this race.
Yeah, great. I thought it was a pretty interesting race because, and listen, we'll find out. The morning line favorite is drawn to the rail, John Hancock, and I guess we'll find out more about him in here. He certainly has the potential to be one of the better colts in the crop, but he's still got to prove that. And it felt like this was kind of a wide open race. You already mentioned the added distance that they all have to deal with in here. And I also felt like this race could be run at a pretty fast pace.
And speaking of that potential pace scenario, and also the likely favorite, the number 1, John Hancock, what could be critical to his chances is how quickly they go up front. And I agree, Mike. It does feel like there are horses who want to get forward position in this race, particularly John Hancock drawing the inside. I think that's going to force the hand of Flavien Prat. But what kind of speed are we going to get from the number 8, Furio, who has shown the ability to go 21 and change in sprint races early in his career? I don't think he's going to go that fast in this 9.5 furlong affair, but that horse is pretty quick from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, just based on Furio's 3 races so far, it feels like he's making the lead in this race, David. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what they decide to do with John Hancock in here, but Furio doesn't look like a horse who's that comfortable rating in his races. I just feel like if they're going to run him in here at this, and even a longer distance than they went last time, I doubt they're going to take a hold of him early.
And also the number 4, Yinzer, since they put the blinkers on, has been very aggressive in the early stages of his races. And the number 6, Built, is getting blinkers on for this race. So it's pretty easy to see this rate pace potentially getting quick towards the front end. Let's go through this field, beginning from the rail out with the number 1, John Hancock, who, as Mike mentioned, is the 7-2 morning line favorite for this race. We'll take a look at his most recent start when he was the winner of the Sam F. Davis. He fended off Owen Almighty this day. Owen Almighty ranges up to his outside, actually looks like he pokes his head in front at about the 16th pole here. And it's a credit to John Hancock that he battles back towards the inside, shows that professionalism to run on through the wire in just the second start of his career, first time going 2 turns. But Mike only got an 84 buyer for that race. I guess, and I'll let you comment on this, whether you believe Owen Almighty's next victory in the Tampa Bay Derby flatters that number a little bit or suggests a little bit low, but I'm not exactly convinced that this horse is going to continue to get faster with more ground.
Yeah, I'm worried about it too, and especially with the pace scenario in this race that we already talked about. I'm not knocking this horse, David. I thought his debut was a really good looking performance sprinting, and whether or not you believe that Owen Almighty flattered him last time running a faster race, winning the Tampa Bay Derby, albeit with a really soft trip. I do think Owen Almighty is a really nice horse. And so John Hancock, he was really game to fend him off in the late stages there and get the job done. Not knocking this horse, but he holds no edge on this field. He probably has other speed to deal with this time. And he's probably going off as the favorite come post time in here. So that just set me looking for other horses to bet.
I completely agree. I think there are some concerning signs in his pedigree about him getting this distance. Physically, he doesn't look so much to me like a horse who's going to continue to get better with added ground, and he does have to make that speed figure step forward as the likely favorite. Number 2 is Chunk of Gold, who was closest chasing Magnitude at the wire last time, a horse who looked like he was going to completely change the conversation on this Kentucky Derby trail with that 108 buyer that he earned winning the Risen Star. That's a moot point now because he's gone to the sidelines, but Chunk of Gold still ran pretty well to be second in that race in the first dirt start of his career. He's a horse who had shown talent in his 2 prior synthetic races, running particularly well in that Leonada Stakes, where he closed into a very slow pace to get up for second. And like last time, time, I thought he had some real trouble coming to the quarter pole. He was starting to make that move between horses, found traffic behind a tiring runner in front of him, had to lose momentum, come around that foe, and was regaining it around the eighth pole to really finish well across the wire. He strikes me as one that's going to have no problem handling this distance.
Yeah, that's probably the one thing that you really want to take into consideration with him. The longer distance probably doesn't affect him as much as it does some of the other horses. Like you, I just like all three of his races. He did have trouble around the final turn in the Risen Star. It's not that it mattered. He was never winning that race, but maybe he was going to be a clear second instead of just getting up for second in there. He ran fine, but he was over 40-1 in that race. He'll be a much shorter price this time, and I'm just not sure I'd be willing to take it.
The number 3 is Tistastic, another horse who seems like distance is not going to be a problem for him. He just stays on at one pace, grinds away at the ends of his races. He's been a little disappointing, though, Mike, in his last couple of starts. Just got a strange trip to back in the Southwest where he was forward early, gradually lost position in the middle point of the race, and then was finishing on at the end. And then last time in the Rebel, there was kind of a bit of a traffic jam around the far turn. He didn't take the worst of it, but got shuffled back a little bit. Then again, was just staying on at one pace. I feel like he could pick up some pieces in here. I just don't know if he's really a win candidate.
Yeah, me either. I just don't really like any of his races. There, I can look at some of his trips and say, well, it didn't necessarily work out that great for him. You mentioned last time, not only did he catch a little traffic, but he was wide on the first turn, and then he was in some traffic on the second turn. I still thought that when he got room, he didn't really do anything in the stretch. I just don't like this horse that much, David, and it's not like he's going to be a great price in here.
We saw Steve Asmussen and Ben Curtis steal a race at a big price on the front end when they took the Risen Star with Magnitude, and we'll see if they can use similar tactics with the number 4 Yinzer, who's stepping up out of a maiden victory last time out. And like I said when we were talking about the pace projector, since they put the blinkers on this horse, he has shown a lot of early speed. Thankfully, he's run a little straighter because that was a big problem for him 3 back when he cost himself a victory, veering out to the outer rail in the middle of the stretch. When this horse runs straight, Mike, he's got some talent. I do think you have to wonder if maybe the track carried him a little bit last time, though, because there was a lot of discussion about whether there was a speed bias on Risen Star Day when he broke his maiden.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. He also just got, I mean, the fractions were solid, but he got absolutely loose on the lead in that maiden win last time. And you mentioned how he had cost himself that win 3 starts back. He was getting a little drifty at the end of that win last time too. He started getting out very late in that race. He jumped to his wrong lead coming to the wire there. He did take a step forward winning last time, David, but I still wasn't that impressed with that victory.
The number 5 is Caldera, a horse who kind of has to take a base level of support given the fact that he's going out for My Racehorse and has a big following because of that. Took a lot of money in the Derby Future wager last week, despite the fact that it needs a lot of points and still has some things to prove on this Kentucky Derby trail. And given all of those factors, Mike, I was all prepared to handicap this race and not like this horse that much, thinking he'd be an underlay. But I do feel like he's coming into this race potentially with even more upside. I don't love the fact that Getaway Car, who won his most recent start, and we'll take a look at the replay of the Sunland Park Derby. I don't love the Getaway Car came back and was disappointing in the Virginia Derby last week, but I don't know if that really has any bearing on this horse's upside because he did handle the step up in class pretty well. And boy, when I go back to watch that maiden victory 2 back at Oaklawn Park, he was impressive that day and gave me the impression that added distance won't be a problem.
Yeah, I think we just have the same opinion of this horse. Yeah, I'm not going to really add to anything that you just brought up. I really did like his maiden win 2 starts back, even though he's another horse who just got loose on the lead in there. But I just like the way he finished it. He ran well last time, David. I know that Getaway Car came back and wasn't that good last weekend, but Getaway Car's not a bad 3-year-old. He was on the lead in that race. This horse had to come wide after him. And I mean, at the end of the day, you just saw in the replay there, he missed a pretty brutal bob there not to get the job done.
Speaking of that Virginia Derby, we should note that the top 2 finishers from that race were coming out of the Risen Star and finished way behind Magnitude in that spot. And Built actually ran a better race than both of those horses, the number 6. He is a horse who was wide around the turns, made a move to actually challenge Magnitude coming to the top of the stretch, and then got turned away by that foe. And Mike, the number 6 Built just feels like a horse that maybe ran a little better than it looks last time. And if you believe that the Risen Star was one of the stronger prep races, I suppose he's among the horses to beat in here.
Yeah, that's how I looked at him. I do think he's, I can't say that I'm totally sold on him, especially as they go a little bit longer again here. But, to me, he got nailed for second, right at the very end last time. I still think he ran the second best race, chasing the winner all the way around the track. He got a little tired at the end, but I thought he just did a lot of hard work in there. His prior races, I like all of them. I just think this horse is talented. I don't know that I love blinkers going on this horse, but we'll see how it all works out.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be able to get more forward in this race than he was last time, given the speed signed on. And I had trouble deciphering what I wanted to do with the way he failed to finish last time, because I did want to give him credit for challenging the winner around the turn, but I didn't like the way he was shortening stride at the end. And there are some concerns about distance in his pedigree. Number 7 is Vosimo, another horse coming out of that Risen Star. And Mike, I want to get your take on his trip that day, because it was a strange one. It looked like he was going to finish last around the far turn, and somehow you look down when they're crossing the wire and he's completing the superfecta in 4s. You have to kind of go back and rewind the tape to figure out how he got there. They're putting blinkers on for this race, and I get it, because the way he disengaged in the middle portion of the race last time, you want him to be able to run a more complete race. I think if he does, he's got natural ability. I just didn't know what to do with that last performance.
Yeah, I'm confused by that performance too, but I think you're right. I think that if you go back, not only that race, but even his first 2 starts, where it just looks like he's not even really trying. To me, he looks like a horse who has a lot of ability. I'm not surprised that Pletcher finally decided that he needs to put blinkers on this horse, because he just looked really green to me, even in the first 2 wins, where I thought not only did I think he ran really well in those races, David, I think he finished really well in those races. And I don't know what happened last time. I'm with you. I thought he was going to finish last, and then all of a sudden they alter him to the center of the track in the stretch, and he comes running again and to get up for 4th in there. I just think he's talented, and if he can just sort of be more focused and get the right trip in here, I think he's a major, major player.
I did watch the last 2 workouts, both of them with the blinkers on. The March 7th work was really not pretty. This horse didn't finish at all, but the last workout was a good one. He galloped away from company, really finished, looked like he was more engaged, so maybe the blinkers are having a positive effect. The number 8 is Furio, and we talked about his early speed when we were discussing the pace projector. This horse can fly away from the gate, and we know he's a good sprinter. He won his maiden race going 6 furlongs and was just rocketing to the front in early stages and was able to hold on late. He stretched out to the 2 turns last time, facing a rival that we'll talk about in just a minute, Instant Replay, and he set an honest pace, Mike, but I didn't love the way he was finishing that race, and certainly didn't give me much confidence that more distance is going to work.
Me either. This horse is really fast. I do expect them to make the lead with him if they're going to run him in this race, and I'll be shocked if he can wire this field.
The number 9 is Instant Replay, that horse that ran down Furio last time. And kind of strange to see a Brad Cox horse that's completed for maiden claiming tags a couple of times, now running in a Derby prep race. But he has slowly but surely come along. The last race was a big step forward for him, certainly better than anything he's done before, when he earned that 92 buyer sailing past Furio in the late stages. But Mike, he got a great pace setup. That was a much weaker field than this, and now he might have to do better against tougher.
Yeah, and he's probably, I think there's at least a chance he takes some money too off of the 92 figure and the connections and all that stuff. I'm with you. He did run pretty well last time. He won that race really easily, but to me, Furio's not a contender in this race. And this horse just had all the best of it. They're sitting back while that horse made a solid pace.
Like, there are a few horses in this race that I found to be really tough calls, and the number 10 Hypnus is one of those. A horse who was very impressive when he broke his maiden on debut at Fairgrounds, and then they tried the Rebel right off that debut victory. And we'll take a look at the replay of that race, and we'll pick it up around the far turn. He's the number 4 horse in the white cap that's towards the right of the screen, and you're going to see, just as they switch the camera angle, this horse is going to get into a little bit of trouble here, because he's traveling pretty well under Brian Hernandez Jr. and just finds himself behind a bunch of tiring horses at the top of the stretch. There was a fast pace up front that was falling apart at this point, and you could see here just loses momentum in behind a horse that's coming back into his face, has to wait even behind today's rival Tistastic before ducking to the rail. Mike, when this horse finally did get clear, he was finishing on well at the end, so I think he's better than this performance. However, they're trying an awfully tough spot in just the 3rd start of his career.
I know. They tried a tough spot last time, and they're just going to press on and run him in another tough spot. I kind of understand it, though, David, off of the Rebel, because he did feel like he got pretty unlucky there. Yes, the pace was there for him, so if he did get a clean run and was a lot closer at the end, I probably wouldn't like him that much. But the horse had real trouble, and he did run when he got clear. I also really liked his debut, which, by the way, was another race where he got a pretty good pace in front of him, but I just thought he handled it really well. Didn't get outrun by it, kept himself in range, really finished at the end. I think this horse might be pretty good.
I think he's pretty good too. They're asking a lot of him, and I went through the same thought process as you. If the pace came apart the way that it was for other horses in that race, and he got a clean run, we would be saying he got a perfect trip in
Yeah.
there. So we'll see what we get from Hypnus stretching out to the 9.5 furlongs here. Well, it's pick time. Let's throw up our top four for this Louisiana Derby, Mike. And you're going with the number 7 Vossima, one of those horses coming out of the Risen Star. Just have to hope the blinkers allow him to be more focused this time.
Yeah, just gonna go on the idea, at least from the way I look at it. I just think he's as talented as anyone in here. So I'm just gonna hope that he puts it all together here and handles the added run. You talked about horses that were sort of tough calls. I thought that 7 and the 10, they're the two horses I have on top, 1 and 2. I think they are tough calls, but I like them both.
And I went with the number 2 Chunk of Gold. I hear you, Mike, that he was a big price last time and he's not going to be 40 to 1 this day, but I don't think he's going to be that short of a price against this field, given how wide open the field is and the connections he goes out for. And I just have confidence that he's moving in the right direction. He's going to get the distance, and I think the pace could really work out for him. So I put the number 2 Chunk of Gold on top, 2, 5, 7, 10 for me, and 7, 10, 6, 5 for Mike in the DRF Saturday race of the day, the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.